For context, I self-published 3 books that are doing about $20,000 a month in royalties. That's about $250,000 a year. And these are the 4 things that I see other authors screwing up. We're going to cover pricing, production, promotion, and a misunderstanding with what's the most important thing to spend your effort on. Bargain basement pricing is the classic mistake. If someone is going to buy your book for $7, they will buy it for $12. I guarantee it. When you self-publish, the way the royalties work is Amazon takes the cover price of your book, they remove the printing costs, that's usually $3 or $4, and then they give you 60% of what's left. So if you set your book's price at $8, those $3 or $4 is like half the ticket price. And then the 60% of that is like $2.50. Now, if you set your price a little higher, instead of being $8, it is say $14, which is still a totally reasonable price to pay for a paperback. No one's going to feel that's expensive. When you take out the printing costs, you got $10 left over. And then when you get 60% of that, that's $6. So instead of $2.50 per copy, you're making $6 per copy. You're earning twice as much in monthly royalties for the same number of copies sold. Basically, a low price gives you lower royalty percentages just because of the way self-publishing costs work. And low prices don't actually increase your volume that much. In some cases, they hurt it because when someone sees a really cheap paperback, they assume it is garbage, right? The bargain basement pricing does not signal value. The only exception to this is if you're writing serial fiction, where you've got lots of books in a series and you want to put the first book in the series as cheap as possible, so that the first book in a series acts like the trailer and hooks new readers so that they will then buy the rest of the series at full price. Second mistake is amateurish production. Now, I get it. You are squeezed for cash. You don't have a publisher footing the bill. There are a lot of things you don't need to spend money on, but there are some things you should because they are really important and you get a lot of return in terms of perceived professionalism for your book in return for very little money. You're already spending like 1,000 or 2,000 hours of your time on your book. It is worth spending a few $100s to multiply all that effort with the power of professionalism. So the expensive things you do not need to spend money on. You do not need a book coach. That's a few $1,000s. You do not need a developmental editor. That is like $5,000 to $10,000. You do not need an agency or a vanity publisher or anything like that. That's like $10,000 to $50,000. You do not need a marketing agency. That's like an infinite amount of money. None of those things are critical for self-published success. What you do need to spend money on, ideally, a copy editor, that's $1,000 or $2,000. That's going to be the expensive item. You can get it cheaper in some cases. Some authors are starting to be able to do this with the AIs, and you go section by section, paragraph by paragraph, and you very rigorously check the suggestions it is making to you. That is something I am playing with. It seems like it's actually getting pretty decent. So that might be a way to save this money. Proofreading, just send it to a professional proofreader. Again, you can try using the AIs, but absolutely worth spending the few $100s and getting this done properly. Also, your cover. Many people can do the cover themselves, but it is worth spending a bit of money on if you can't get a professional result for your copy editing, your proofreading, and your cover. And the other stuff, don't spend money on. Next mistake related to all that is half-assing your Amazon page. Again, you are spending like 2,000 hours on your book. You should spend at least 10 or 20 hours on your book's Amazon page, right? Use all the options. Make sure that the author page is really good. Use the A+ content where you can upload images and put in your own editorial reviews. There's a lot of options on Amazon that most authors just skip over. That is lunacy, right? Yes, your book is amazing, but you got to show people it is amazing. It is not a lot of content. In theory, it doesn't take a lot of time to just get through. I see people go through this in like an hour, but it is your most important sales asset. Make it as good as humanly possible, and then come back to it every few months and refine it based on what you know. Add new reviews, add new testimonials, tweak the language based on what you're hearing from your readers so that you can make it more compelling. Your Amazon page is absolutely critical, and self-published authors don't spend nearly enough time on it. The last mistake is to misunderstand where your effort is meant to go when writing a book. This one's huge. Look, writing a book, we think the main task is writing. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to draft. The challenge, we think, is the blank page. How am I going to fill this blank page with words, 30,000 words or 50,000 words or whatever? The work of making a successful book is not writing 30,000 words. An AI can write 30,000 words in a minute. The work of making a successful book is picking the right words. And the right words are the words that work for a reader. This is a product design task. It's not like a writing task. So you've written your draft. That is amazing. It's like a huge goal. Now you get to start figuring out how to make that work for readers. In the case of pop nonfiction and fiction, making it work for readers means making it unputdownable. For useful nonfiction, making it work for readers means that it solves the goal or problem that they had when they picked up the book, right? There's a promise on the cover, this book will help this person do this thing. And then inside the book, if they read it, they actually accomplish that. They don't just read it and go, huh, interesting, and then do nothing differently. How do you get a book to work in that way? And most books don't. Most books, people read them, they go, interesting, and that's the end of it. They don't actually behave differently, so it didn't work for them. Or they start reading and then it sits on the nightstand half read. The only way to do this is testing it over and over with real readers. This is why I am so passionate about beta reading. You get your manuscript, you get your draft, you revise it once or twice, but you don't worry about polishing it. And then you put it out in readers' hands. You aren't trying to impress them. You're trying to see where they give up. You're trying to see where they get confused. You're trying to see where they stop reading. And then you go, cool, I know what's going to stop my book from working. Let me go fix that. You refine it, you revise it, you try more readers. Eventually your book really works. This is the critical task of making a book. It's not just drafting it. It's this iterative refinement until it is really working for readers. And this takes a lot of time and it's a grind. It is fun because you're seeing the feedback come in, you're talking to real readers, your book keeps getting better. There's a thrill to it, but it can also feel grindy because you're not seeing a nice number go up. When you're drafting, it's really satisfying because you go, oh, I wrote 2,000 words today. I wrote 5,000 words today. I wrote 1,000 words today. You keep seeing that number go up. Oh, I'm getting closer. There's the finish line. But the part that really matters about making a good book, which is then a successful book because it gets recommended and people keep buying it for months instead of just when you launch it and promote it, the word count isn't really increasing. And so if you go into it and you think that you've already done the hard part, which is the drafting, it's really easy to get discouraged during the part that matters, which is making it good. And when your book crosses a certain threshold where it goes from pretty good to really good, the results you get as an author are astronomically better because now instead of going, interesting, people go, oh my gosh, that was the best book, the most helpful book, the most engaging book I've read this year. And they start telling people about it. And if you can unlock that, it's just a night and day difference. That's the difference between failing as a self-published author and succeeding as a self-published author. So it is worth putting in the extra work to cross that threshold because the results are really binary. You're either recommendable or you aren't, and you have to be recommendable if you want to succeed and make a living in this industry.